Hi everybody, Michelle here from michellesmidheaven.com, and today I'm going to talk about Jupiter's yearly sign change, and this time is pretty special because it's quite a big shift. Jupiter moves out of the sign of his detriment Gemini and into the sign of his exaltation Cancer on June 9th. Jupiter now visits Cancer, which is the moon's home, so the moon will happily play host to Jupiter for an entire year. Why do the moon and Jupiter like this little setup so much? What do they have in common? And what are Jupiter's shadow sides? I'll get into all of that today. First, let's take a look at some of the things Jupiter is associated with. In ancient astrology, Jupiter was said to be the greater benefic and the life giver who is always celebrating life. Jupiter loves life, and this is why Jupiter wants to multiply and grow and magnify, explore and expand whatever we find in the strange realm of our human experience. Think of it as a celebration. Jupiter wants to support whatever is going on, and especially, I would say, the things that we enjoy. As a benefic planet, Jupiter is never pushing us to do anything. The good never coerces you into doing anything. On the contrary, Jupiter in the chart is pointing to an area where you can grow spontaneously or liberate yourself from something that is holding you back. So, in general, there is an ease and a flow that Jupiter is bringing into your life by cultivating generosity, by helping you to be more generous, kind, and helpful to others. So, whenever you feel good when providing encouragement or emotional help, or when you find yourself in a state of calm and contentment, that's Jupiter talking. When you feel relaxed, even though your environment isn't relaxed at all, that is all about Jupiter's power. Jupiter is with you in situations where you show a calm and assertive attitude towards any kind of disappointments or difficulties, or when you also feel, for example, ready to forgive someone. That's Jupiter. Okay, so community, support, nourishment, crowds, those are all keywords that Jupiter and his host, the moon, have in common. It's why they like one another so much. Both the moon as a quintessential relational planet and Jupiter as a unifying force, they want to take care of people and nurture the good in people. They both represent larger groups of people like families and villages, cities, countries, the masses. So you can see how their combination lends itself to form larger communities, to get together with people who share the same ideals or have a common interest. People who are gathering together in a social circle or maybe living together, much like a family or like a religious cult sometimes, right? The moon and Jupiter shape cultures. They develop the ideas, the customs, and social behaviors in a society. It's about people's ethnic, historical, and national identity. Jupiter is associated with belief systems, ideology, higher knowledge, but Jupiter can also represent some dogma and indoctrination. When we think of the planet Jupiter and its immense mass and gravitational influence in our solar system, we know that Jupiter often deflects or captures asteroids and meteors that would otherwise be colliding with our planet Earth. I think that's such an appropriate image for Jupiter as a protector. But there is also a double-edged nature to Jupiter. Remember, he rules the double-bodied or mutable signs of Sagittarius and Pisces. So Jupiter protects and shields us, but not from a motherly kind of place. Although in Cancer, under the moon's influence, that certainly could be the case. But in and of itself, Jupiter represents protection from a place of gravitational authority, so to speak. So that's why he's always associated with big institutions. So institutional frameworks like courts, universities, empires, religions, ideologies, law, and morality. In other words, centralization and globalization. And so we can see the double-sidedness here as well, where we know that these big institutional powers might start off from the idea or principles of support and protection, but in practice, they might end up protecting the corruption that arises. Universities, for example, they can become dogmatic, like ivory towers, right? And governments that are supposed to support their citizens use their power to surveil and suppress. So these are the corrupting mechanisms that come with the territory of large Jupiterian systems. But Jupiter is also quite restless or adventurous in the sense that Jupiter feels that there is always so much more to explore. He's an eternal seeker. And in a literal sense, we know that a lot of Jupiterian people like to travel unless they're totally comfortable exactly where they are. But in a more spiritual sense, Jupiter is always searching for a full-blown, multivitamin explanation of everything. That's the impossible goal. But then again, there are no limits to what Jupiter thinks is possible, so this is also why Jupiter is so optimistic and positive. The glass is always half full, and Jupiter does not know the word no. Jupiter always wears rose-colored glasses, and that reveals an innocence and sometimes naivety, ready to believe, anything as long as there's a story that sounds somewhat coherent. He's very much a yes god, and as you can probably imagine, this has its pros and cons, as always, in particular because Jupiter doesn't know when to stop or doesn't stop at all, ever. The healthy boundaries are missing. So Jupiter could bring excesses because there's too much of something, and that can be overwhelming or even harmful. Think of overeating or drinking too much or going completely overboard. Now, all the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, are very prolific, very productive, and especially the moon sign of Cancer, because that's the sign where spirit informs and finds embodiment. The moon represents matter, the physical form of everything and everybody we see around us. And Jupiter, as a principle of abundance, brings a multitude of lunar shapes and forms into existence, whether that's through actually giving birth to human beings or children in the more symbolic sense, like your embodied ideas, giving shape to your imagination through any type of project that is unfolding for you. Maybe you'll notice how much easier it gets to give birth to your ideas and how abundantly you can create and produce whatever inspires you. And in particular, the things that you really enjoy working on. Because again, Jupiter celebrates life. He's an optimist and he's here to enjoy himself. So he's mainly going to support things that bring people happiness. Jupiter is about spontaneity, about getting into a flow. He's not going to be willing to help you if you decide to make things more difficult than they should be. So if you want to invite more of that positive Jupiterian energy into your life, you're going to want to get into a more relaxed state somehow. You got to be willing to leave the doors open for whatever comes your way. Jupiter brings opportunities that you can only see when you kind of diffuse or dilute your focus. So that doesn't mean that you cannot aim for something, but the focal intensity does need to dissolve a little bit so that Jupiter can actually show you a variety of possibilities, and then you can cherry pick what feels right to you. It's about freedom of choice. That is true abundance. Being open to receive what's given will attract Jupiterian abundance. And the trick is to not have something very specific in mind and then wait for Jupiter to make it happen. That's when you are going to miss fun opportunities, I think. Both Jupiter and the moon are travelers, they are wanderers, and Jupiter is venturing out into the world and exploring because he's looking for meaning. And the moon reminds Jupiter of where the light is, where the true path is, as the moon is always reflecting the sun's light of spirit. In turn, Jupiter teaches the beliefs, the wisdom of our ancestors, allowing us to feel at home wherever we go, giving us a sense of belonging through inner faith and confidence in something that is much greater than us. Jupiter's support comes in various expressions, not only through the activities that you initiate or things that simply happen in your environment, but also through people that enter your life, people who show up in your environment. And a very Jupiterian expression would actually be through teachers crossing your path or through a community of like minded people. Jupiter brings all kinds of supporters and fans and followers into your life. Maybe you'll meet someone who takes on the role of a parent, somebody who makes you feel at home, or maybe some kind of patron enters your life, offering support and protection so that you have the freedom and the space to do what you love and grow and fulfill your dreams and ambitions. Or better yet, you can become a patron for others, offering your guidance, giving people the space to do their own thing and supporting them as best as you can. The moon is always eager to give shape to Jupiter's dreams, and Jupiter is there to protect all lunar things like family, groups of people, or the people in general. But again, the danger with Jupiter is always that Jupiter starts off aiming for something that is good, but then the danger lies in the path toward the greater good. The journey is crucial. The path to truth must be true itself. Nothing good can come out of evil means. If your actions come from a more negative side on Jupiter's spectrum, so from a place of dogma or blind collectivism, self indulgence, arrogance, ego inflation, nepotism, or exploitation, then whatever result you get will be infused or corrupted with those qualities, no matter how shiny your goals and ideals look from the outside. So, what's the message on a more personal level? The methods that we use to reach our goal effectively shape what that goal will eventually become. Jupiter always invites us to pay attention to the journey itself. We can aim high and have lofty ideals, but the gold is in the journey. The good with a capital G is a process, not a product. And Jupiter, who was called the greater benefic in ancient astrology, is the one who does good things. It's about a way of being, the quality of the motion towards something. But if the path gets desecrated, so does the goal. This is something to keep in mind right from the start when Jupiter ingresses into Cancer on June 9th, because Jupiter will immediately move into a square to Saturn and Neptune, who are currently located in the first degrees of Aries. This square aspect will remain active at least a good 10 days, and Saturn and Neptune are in a dominant position in relation to Jupiter, so they're going to put some pressure on Jupiter. So, what could this aspect bring about? Think of an ethical crisis or an inner dialogue about the greater good that you're hoping to achieve, and then your enthusiasm is then deflated by Saturn, who introduces some skepticism, perhaps, or criticism, maybe some fears. Or maybe Saturn lets you know about the potentially unpleasant consequences of your actions. And in that sense, Saturn can also be a grounding force that pushes us to do better. Squares are dynamic, they give rise to action. And certainly, an opening square, such as this one, is all about making improvements. This will be the last opening square between Jupiter and Saturn in a series of 3. So this is the final dynamic push for growth. The first 2 squares happened in August and December of last year. Look at where Jupiter and Saturn are in your natal chart and what conversation they are having there natally. Something of that natal promise might develop into a new chapter. And you can also look at what was being seeded at the start of this particular Jupiter-Saturn cycle that started with their conjunction back in December 2020 in the very first degree of Aquarius. Bringing Neptune in the mix can definitely dissolve some illusions, sometimes in a painful way because of Saturn's co-presence there, demonstrating how some of our ideas are unjust or simply false. Or this combo may also point out what kind of thoughts and activities appear to be valuable, but are in fact spiritually hollow. Now, fortunately, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, which tends to bring out the noblest of qualities in Jupiter. There's a high degree of receptiveness and sensitivity, and it's also such a great, great blessing for the moon, who is going to take that positive Jupiterian vibe with her on all her travels. So each time the moon moves into a new sign, which is about every 2 days and a half, she's going to bring a little Jupiterian spark of enthusiasm to everything she touches, which definitely is something that I am very much looking forward to. And I hope we're all going to feel that and enjoy it. And if you're curious to see what Jupiter has in store for you personally, just book a reading with me at michellesmidheaven.com. And if you enjoyed this video, please share, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.